Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another English podcast. I'm genuinely happy that you're here today. Whether you're listening while commuting, exercising, preparing a meal, or simply enjoying a quiet moment with a cup of coffee, thank you for allowing me to be part of your day. Today's topic is something incredibly personal, surprisingly universal, and often misunderstood. It is procrastination. Almost everyone has experienced it. You promise yourself that today will be different. You wake up feeling motivated. You prepare your workspace. You open your laptop, your notebook, or perhaps the book you've been meaning to read. Everything seems perfect. And then, somehow, almost magically, your attention begins to drift. You check one notification, then another. You decide to organize your desk before starting. Suddenly, cleaning your room feels more important than writing that report. You convince yourself that you're simply getting ready, when in reality, you're delaying the very thing that matters most. It's fascinating, isn't it? Human beings can become incredibly productive at avoiding the task they actually need to complete. Many people believe procrastination is simply laziness. I don't. In fact, psychologists have spent decades studying procrastination, and what they discovered completely changed the conversation. Procrastination is rarely about poor time management. More often, it is about emotion management. Think about that for a moment. When a task feels overwhelming, uncertain, boring, stressful, or emotionally uncomfortable, our brain naturally searches for immediate relief. It whispers, "Let's do something easier first." That easier activity provides a tiny reward: watching one short video, scrolling through social media, making another cup of coffee, checking emails for the 5th time. None of these activities solve the original problem, but they temporarily remove the uncomfortable feeling attached to it. Unfortunately, temporary relief often creates long-term stress. Have you ever noticed that procrastination never truly feels relaxing? You may spend hours avoiding one important task, yet throughout those hours, a small voice remains in the background. I should be working. I really need to start. I've already wasted so much time. The task never disappears. Instead, it quietly follows you everywhere, while watching television, while eating dinner, even while trying to sleep. That invisible pressure becomes surprisingly heavy. The interesting part is that most procrastinators are not careless people. Many are perfectionists. They care deeply about producing excellent work. Ironically, that desire for perfection becomes the very reason they struggle to begin. If the first sentence isn't perfect, they hesitate. If the presentation might contain mistakes, they delay. If success isn't guaranteed, they postpone taking action altogether. Perfectionism often disguises itself as high standards, but sometimes it is simply fear wearing elegant clothing. Fear of failure, fear of criticism, fear of disappointing ourselves, fear that our best effort may still not be enough. These fears are deeply human. There is absolutely nothing unusual about experiencing them. However, allowing fear to make every decision slowly limits our potential. Imagine standing at the edge of a swimming pool. You know the water will probably feel cold, so you keep waiting. Maybe in 5 minutes, maybe after the sun comes out, maybe after someone else jumps first. The longer you wait, the more difficult the first step becomes. Then someone simply walks over and jumps. For a brief moment, they feel uncomfortable. A few seconds later, they're swimming comfortably. Life often works exactly the same way. Starting is usually far more painful than continuing. Our minds are excellent storytellers. They create dramatic predictions. This project will take forever. I'll never understand this. I'm not talented enough. What if everyone judges me? Yet reality is often much kinder than imagination. Once we begin, we frequently discover that the task wasn't nearly as impossible as we expected. There is a powerful quote that says, "Action produces clarity." I love that sentence because it reminds us that confidence doesn't usually appear before action. Confidence grows because of action. Waiting until you feel completely ready is like waiting for winter to become warm before wearing a jacket. The conditions may never become perfect. One of the biggest myths about successful people is that they always feel motivated. They don't. Authors don't always feel inspired. Athletes don't always feel energetic. Entrepreneurs don't always wake up excited. Students don't always enjoy studying. Professionals don't always love every meeting. The difference is not the absence of resistance. The difference is the willingness to move despite resistance. That is discipline. And discipline is much quieter than motivation. Motivation feels exciting. Discipline feels ordinary. It simply says, I'll begin, even when the mood isn't perfect, even when the weather isn't ideal, even when confidence is nowhere to be found. Perhaps today you've been waiting for the perfect moment to begin something meaningful. Maybe it's learning English. Maybe it's applying for a new opportunity. Maybe it's writing a book. Maybe it's improving your health. Or maybe it's simply becoming the version of yourself you've imagined for years. Whatever it is, remember this. Your future is rarely shaped by one extraordinary decision. More often, it is shaped by hundreds of ordinary moments when you choose action instead of delay.
Let's explore something that many people never stop to question. Why do we procrastinate even when we clearly understand the consequences? If we know delaying our work creates stress, anxiety, and regret, why do we continue doing it? The answer lies in the way our brain evaluates time. Human beings naturally place a higher value on immediate comfort than on future rewards. Imagine you have two choices. The first choice is to spend the next 2 hours studying for an important exam. The second choice is to watch your favorite series, scroll through social media, or chat with friends. Your logical mind knows that studying is the wiser decision. However, your emotional mind whispers something completely different. It won't hurt if I wait just a little longer. I'll feel more motivated after dinner. I work better under pressure. That last sentence has become one of the most popular excuses in the world. I work better under pressure. But do we really? Or have we simply become familiar with the adrenaline that arrives at the last possible moment? There is a significant difference between performing under pressure and depending on pressure. When pressure becomes your only source of motivation, peace slowly disappears from your life. Every deadline feels like an emergency. Every project becomes a race against the clock. Every success is accompanied by exhaustion instead of satisfaction. Eventually, your body begins to pay the price. Sleepless nights, constant stress, mental fatigue, difficulty concentrating, a feeling that you're always catching up but never moving ahead. That isn't productivity, that's survival. One of the most dangerous consequences of procrastination is that it quietly changes the way we see ourselves. At first, we postpone one assignment, then another, then another. After a while, we stop saying, I delayed this task. Instead, we begin saying, I'm just a procrastinator. Can you hear the difference? One describes an action, the other describes an identity. Our identity influences our behavior more than we realize. If you constantly repeat, I'm lazy, I'm not disciplined, I never finish anything, your brain gradually accepts those statements as facts. And once something becomes part of your identity, changing your habits feels much more difficult. That's why the words you use when speaking to yourself matter. Very few people pay attention to their inner conversations, yet those silent conversations shape their confidence every single day. Imagine speaking to your closest friend the way many people speak to themselves. You'll probably fail. You're not smart enough. Why even try? You always ruin everything. Would your friend feel encouraged? Probably not. So why should your own mind respond positively to those words? Kindness towards yourself is not weakness. It is emotional intelligence. It allows you to learn from mistakes without becoming trapped inside them. Failure is not the opposite of success. More often than not, failure is part of success. Every accomplished musician has played wrong notes. Every successful writer has written terrible first drafts. Every entrepreneur has made expensive mistakes. Every athlete has lost important competitions. No one begins as an expert. We admire people because of what they eventually become. We rarely witness the countless imperfect attempts that made their success possible. Social media doesn't help, does it? Everywhere you look, people appear perfectly organized. Perfect morning routines, perfect careers, perfect relationships, perfect bodies, perfect confidence, perfect lives.
But remember something important. You are comparing your everyday reality to someone else's carefully edited highlights. Nobody uploads videos of themselves staring at a blank document for 2 hours. Nobody proudly shares that dozens of rejected ideas before one becomes successful. Success often looks effortless from the outside because the difficult moments remain invisible. Comparison is another hidden cause of procrastination. When we compare ourselves to people who seem far ahead, we sometimes convince ourselves there's no point in trying. We think, they're already better than me. I started too late. I'll never catch up. Those thoughts quietly steal our energy before we've even begun. Life is not a race against strangers. It is a conversation between the person you were yesterday and the person you want to become tomorrow. Progress rarely announces itself with fireworks. It appears in ordinary moments. Reading 10 pages instead of none. Practicing English for 20 minutes. Completing one difficult email. Taking one short walk. Writing one meaningful paragraph. These actions may seem insignificant today, but repeated consistently, they become extraordinary. Small improvements have remarkable power, not because each one changes your life overnight, but because they change the direction of your life, and direction is often far more important than speed. Perhaps you've spent months waiting to become fearless. Maybe you've been waiting for motivation to suddenly appear. Or perhaps you've been hoping that one magical morning you'll wake up as a completely different person. The truth is much gentler than that. Transformation is usually quiet. It begins with one decision, one action, one promise that you actually keep. Every time you honor a promise you make to yourself, your confidence grows a little stronger. Not because life becomes easier, but because you begin trusting yourself again.
Have you ever noticed that procrastination rarely begins with dramatic decisions? Most of the time, it starts with something incredibly small. I'll do it in 5 minutes. I'll just check one message. I'll watch one short video. I'll organize my desk first. Those tiny decisions seem harmless. In fact, they often feel completely reasonable. But the strange thing about procrastination is that it quietly grows stronger every time we postpone action. 5 minutes become 30. 30 minutes become an entire afternoon. Before we realize it, another day has slipped away. And then comes the familiar sentence, where did all the time go? The truth is, time rarely disappears. It simply gets exchanged. We exchange meaningful work for temporary entertainment. We exchange long-term growth for short-term comfort. We exchange our future possibilities for present convenience. That realization can feel uncomfortable, but discomfort is not always a bad thing. Sometimes discomfort is simply reality knocking on the door, asking us to pay attention. Many people spend years searching for the perfect productivity system, a new planner, a different calendar, a better app, another notebook, a motivational video. While those tools can certainly be helpful, they are not magical solutions, because no planner can eliminate fear. No application can remove self-doubt. No calendar can replace personal responsibility. Real change begins much deeper. It begins with honesty, not the kind of honesty that criticizes you, the kind that gently asks, what am I actually avoiding? Sometimes the answer surprises us. Perhaps you are not avoiding work. Perhaps you are avoiding uncertainty. Maybe you fear making the wrong decision. Maybe you're afraid your effort won't be appreciated. Or maybe success itself feels intimidating, because success often brings greater expectations. Human emotions are wonderfully complex. We don't always avoid difficulty. Sometimes we avoid possibility. Imagine planting a tiny seed in a garden. Would you dig it up every morning just to check if it had grown? Of course not. You would water it, protect it, be patient, trust the process. Yet many of us expect instant results from ourselves. We study for 3 days and wonder why we aren't fluent. We exercise for 1 week and expect a complete transformation. We write for 1 month and hope to become best-selling authors. Growth doesn't work that way. Nature has never been in a hurry, and still forests continue to grow. There is something deeply powerful about consistency. Consistency isn't exciting. It isn't glamorous. Most people won't applaud you for quietly showing up every single day. But over time, consistency creates something that motivation never can. It creates trust. Trust in yourself. You begin believing, if I say I'll do something, I actually will. That belief becomes one of the strongest forms of confidence a person can possess.
Think about a bridge. A bridge isn't built in one afternoon. It is created piece by piece, steel beam after steel beam, bolt after bolt, day after day. Your future is built exactly the same way. One decision, one habit, one conversation, one chapter, one workout, one courageous moment after another. None of those actions seem extraordinary on their own. Together, they become your life. Sometimes people ask, what's the secret to successful people? As if somewhere there exists a hidden formula that only a few fortunate individuals have discovered. But when you read their biographies, listen to their interviews, or study their routines, you notice something surprisingly ordinary. They didn't eliminate discomfort. They learned how to act despite it. They understood that waiting to feel ready could become a lifelong habit. So they started before confidence arrived. They learned while making mistakes. They improved while feeling uncertain. And eventually confidence followed experience, not the other way around. One of my favorite ideas is this. You don't have to believe in your future self immediately. You simply need to stop working against that future self. Every time you delay something meaningful, imagine sending a small burden to the version of you who wakes up tomorrow. Tomorrow's version of you now has one more task, one more deadline, one more regret, one more source of stress. Now imagine doing the opposite. Imagine completing one important task today. You're sending a gift instead of a burden. You're making tomorrow lighter, calmer, more peaceful. Perhaps that's what maturity really looks like. Not becoming perfect, not always feeling motivated, but caring enough about your future that you make small sacrifices today. The future isn't some distant place we'll magically arrive at one day. The future is quietly being created by the choices we make this very moment. Every minute becomes a memory. Every habit becomes a lifestyle. Every decision becomes part of our identity. So if you're listening to this right now, maybe you don't need a completely different life. Maybe you don't need extraordinary talent. Maybe you don't need endless motivation. Maybe all you need is the courage to begin before you feel completely prepared. Because the first step is rarely the easiest, but it is almost always the most important. Smiles gently. Soft music continues.
Let's imagine something together. Picture yourself exactly 1 year from today. Not tomorrow, not next week. 1 full year from now. There are actually 2 versions of you standing in front of you. The first version decided that change could always wait until Monday, until next month, until the beginning of a new year. Every goal remained an idea. Every dream stayed inside a notebook. Every opportunity was postponed because the timing never seemed perfect. Now look closely at that person. They haven't changed very much. The same excuses are still there, the same unfinished plans, the same quiet frustration. And perhaps the hardest part is knowing that they were capable of so much more. Now look at this second version of yourself. This person wasn't perfect. They missed some days, they made mistakes, they doubted themselves more times than they can count. But every single time they stumbled, they chose to begin again. Not because it was easy, because it mattered. That one simple decision, to keep returning instead of giving up, changed everything. When people hear the word success, they often imagine dramatic moments. Standing on a stage, receiving an award, starting a successful business, graduating from university, achieving financial freedom. Those moments are beautiful, but success is usually much quieter than that. Success is waking up and keeping a promise you made to yourself yesterday. Success is choosing to study when nobody is watching. Success is finishing something even when the excitement has disappeared. Discipline isn't glamorous. In fact, it can feel incredibly ordinary. You wake up, you do the work, you repeat the process. Some days feel exciting, many days don't. Yet those ordinary days slowly create extraordinary lives. It's almost like building a house. Nobody admires a single brick, but without each individual brick, the entire house would collapse. Your daily habits are those bricks. Every small action strengthens the foundation of the life you're building. Sometimes we underestimate the power of tiny improvements. Imagine improving just 1% every day. 1% sounds insignificant. You might not even notice the difference tomorrow or next week. But after months of consistent effort, that small improvement becomes remarkable. Progress compounds, just like interest in a savings account. Small actions accumulate. Small habits multiply.
Small decisions quietly reshape your future. Another reason people procrastinate is because they believe every task must feel meaningful. But that's not how life works. There will always be responsibilities that aren't exciting. Answering emails, cleaning your room, paying bills, practicing grammar, reviewing notes, preparing presentations. These activities may never become your favorite part of the day, and that's perfectly normal. Maturity means understanding that not everything valuable is enjoyable in the moment. Sometimes the greatest rewards come from doing things that initially feel inconvenient. There is a beautiful difference between motivation and commitment. Motivation says, I'll do it when I feel inspired. Commitment says, I'll do it because I made a decision. Motivation comes and goes like the weather. Some mornings you wake up full of energy, other mornings you don't. If your actions depend entirely on your emotions, your progress will always be unpredictable. But commitment creates stability. It allows you to move forward even on difficult days. Think about brushing your teeth. Most people don't wake up every morning overflowing with excitement to brush their teeth. They simply do it. It's part of their routine. Imagine if we treated our dreams with the same consistency. Instead of asking, do I feel like studying today? We simply study. Instead of asking, do I feel like exercising? We exercise. Instead of waiting for the perfect emotional state, we build reliable habits. Over time, habits become effortless. What once required enormous discipline eventually becomes automatic. There is another truth that deserves attention. You don't have to change your entire life in one day. In fact, trying to change everything at once often leads to burnout. Real transformation usually begins with one simple choice. Read one page, write one paragraph, practice English for 15 minutes, walk for 20 minutes, finish one important task before checking your phone. Those small victories send a powerful message to your brain. I am someone who takes action. And every time you repeat that action, your identity grows stronger. One day you'll look back and realize that your biggest breakthrough wasn't a dramatic moment. It wasn't one motivational speech. It wasn't one perfect opportunity. It was the quiet decision you made again and again. To stop waiting, to stop doubting, to stop postponing the life you truly wanted. Because every meaningful journey begins exactly the same way, with one imperfect, but courageous, step.
As we come toward the end of today's conversation, I'd like to leave you with one final thought. Life is surprisingly short, not in a frightening way, but in a meaningful one. One day, you'll look back at this season of your life. You probably won't remember every email you sent, every television show you watched, or every hour you spent scrolling through your phone. But you will remember the dreams you were brave enough to chase. You'll remember the risks you decided to take. You'll remember the moments when you believed in yourself, even if only a little. And you'll also remember the opportunities you allowed to pass because fear convinced you to wait. The truth is, procrastination steals much more than time. It steals confidence. It steals momentum. It steals opportunities that may never return in exactly the same form. Most importantly, it steals the relationship you have with yourself. Every time you repeatedly ignore your own promises, a quiet message begins to form inside your mind. Maybe I can't trust myself. That is one of the saddest consequences of procrastination, because confidence is built on trust, not trust from other people, trust in yourself. Now imagine a different story. Imagine becoming someone who keeps even the smallest promises. You decide to read for 20 minutes, and you do. You decide to exercise, and you do. You promise yourself that you'll practice English today, and you actually begin. These actions may appear ordinary to everyone else, but inside your mind, something extraordinary is happening. Every completed promise becomes evidence that you're becoming reliable, evidence that you're becoming disciplined, evidence that you're becoming the kind of person you've always admired. People often ask, how do I become more confident? Confidence is not something you find, it's something you build, brick by brick, action by action, promise by promise. The more you prove to yourself that your words have value, the stronger your confidence becomes. Confidence isn't a starting point, it's the reward for consistent action. Perhaps you're listening to this podcast because there's something you've been postponing, a conversation you've been avoiding, a business idea you've been afraid to start, an exam you've been preparing for, a language you've always wanted to learn, a healthier lifestyle you've promised yourself countless times. Whatever it is, please don't wait for life to become easier. Life has a funny way of reminding us that there will always be another challenge.
If you keep waiting for the perfect moment, you may spend your entire life waiting. The perfect moment rarely arrives. What arrives is this moment, right here, right now. Remember, progress doesn't ask you to be perfect. It simply asks you to keep moving. Some days you'll move quickly. Some days you'll barely move at all. And that's okay. The important thing is not your speed. The important thing is your direction. As long as you're taking steps toward your goals, no matter how small, you're creating a future that didn't exist yesterday. That's something to be proud of. I'd like to leave you with a simple question. Imagine meeting the version of yourself who exists 5 years from today. What would that person thank you for? Would they thank you for watching another hour of videos? Or would they thank you for finally beginning? I believe your future self is quietly cheering for you. Not because you're perfect, not because you've never made mistakes, but because every new day gives you another chance to choose differently, another chance to begin, another chance to become. So, when this podcast ends, don't spend another hour thinking about changing your life. Take one small action. Open the book, write the first sentence, send the email, practice your English, start the workout, make the phone call. Whatever your first step is, let it happen today, because today's small action is infinitely more powerful than tomorrow's perfect plan. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. I truly hope this conversation encouraged you, inspired you, and reminded you that you are far more capable than your doubts sometimes allow you to believe. If you enjoyed this podcast and found it valuable, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss future English learning podcasts and inspiring conversations. I'd also love to hear from you. Leave a comment below. What is one goal you've been procrastinating on, and what is the very first step you're going to take today? Thank you once again for listening. Take care of yourself, keep learning, keep growing, and remember, your future is created by what you choose to do today, not by what you promise to do tomorrow.